Well, thank you all. Thanks for getting up this morning. I flew in at midnight last night from San Francisco. Welcome to my life. But I'm enjoying myself. I get to meet a lot of wonderful people, and I've done that here this morning. And welcome to just another beautiful day in sunny Southern California. Isn't that why we live here? Yes. I mean, isn't this the most wonderful place to live in the country? If only we had better political management. And that's what we're going to talk about today. My mission here is to introduce myself to you and give you a little bit of my background and my philosophy and why I am who I am today. I want to tell you a few things about what I plan on doing and what issues I plan on addressing. I'm going to tell you how I'm going to win this and turn this state around, because I think it desperately needs a turnaround. If there has ever been a state that needs a turnaround, it's the state of California. And then I'd like to get your questions, because I know you have all burning questions about me and what's going to happen to this state and how we're going to achieve the success of this state, the positive success of this state going forward. And rest assured, that's what I'm going to be talking about through this whole campaign is positive action and a positive vision, because I think that's what we need, especially in these times. Partisanship and rhetoric, negative rhetoric is rampant, isn't it? We see it in the media, we see it with our political leaders. I think it's time for leadership to step up, who is going to say that we're going to bring people together instead of driving them apart. Do you think that's a good idea? I think that's long overdue, in my opinion. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself. As Owen said, I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I always tell audiences that I grew up in Barack Obama's district while he was surfing in Hawaii. I'm from the south side. I was actually literally born at the University of Chicago. My mom was a Chicago public school teacher. She was a working mom, a single mom, raising 4 kids. My real father took one look at me and left, and then I never saw him again. So I grew up without a father, and I worked my way up. My mom was a pretty dominant person. She had 2 master's degrees from the University of California at Berkeley, including one in Spanish literature. This is a woman who graduated in the 40s from college and went down to Chile and taught illiterate kids for a year. And that tells you a little bit about her record and about her interest in public service. And of course, that filtered down to her son. The beginnings of my political life, though, were really with my mother, because my mother would take me to school. She taught at an all-black high school on the south side of Chicago. And there is where I learned about political corruption, because I saw the horrendous atmosphere at that public high school, and the fact that the principals were usually chosen because they were friends of the alderman. And that is political corruption. I mean, people talk about political corruption in only the illegal sense, right? You take a bribe or something like that. You hear about politicians who do that. We've had a few of those in the California legislature lately. But I believe that corruption is any time a political leader makes a decision because of political concerns and not because it's the right thing to do for the constituents they represent. And I hope you can agree with that. And to me, that damages, that impedes our progress, right? So I have had a lifetime devoted to doing something about political corruption. My mom retired to Fresno in 1980, so she came back to California. Her 2 sisters, by the way, spent their whole life in California. My mom died in 2000, but not until she would call me every January and tell me how many oranges she picked off the tree. And then she'd ask me how many inches I shoveled. And I finally moved out here about 10 years ago. I always tell people it took me that long to save enough money to buy a house out here. Of course, my friends told me that I moved to the only state in the country that makes Illinois look well managed. And of course, Illinois is pretty dysfunctional. If you ask an Illinois governor for his cell number, you're actually asking for his cell number. But I discovered that California is even more corrupt than Illinois. And that's why I'm running for governor, because there's two Californias. There's the California that we have, but then there's the California that we should have, right? I mean, the California that we remember. We used to have the best roads, the best education, the best business climate, right? Today, what are we? We're a laughing stock, really, truly, for the rest of the country. The news media is all over the fact that California keeps coming up with one nutty idea after another, right? I mean, we're going to ban straws, put people in jail for handing out straws. We're going to make it illegal for a business to ask their prospective employees what they were making at their prior job. What happened to free speech and free markets? Our quality of life has degraded. What are we now? Did you see the U.S. News report a couple weeks ago? We're now 50th out of 50 for the quality of life. How can that actually be the rating? I mean, we know the weather here is fantastic. And I'll tell you why. It's because the politicians, the corrupt special interests that control Sacramento, have made California life virtually unaffordable, haven't they? We have the highest housing prices in the country. We have the highest cost of water, electricity, gasoline. You get ready because you're going to have $4 a gallon gasoline. You go across the border to Arizona, and what are you talking about? $2 a gallon? $2.25? Our cost of employment is just skyrocketing. There's another report out just this week. I think actually the firm is here in Irvine that came out and said that 9,000 businesses have left California in the last 7 years. 9,000. And I got to tell you, that doesn't include businesses that have expanded elsewhere, that their executives love it here, right? Because they live in wonderful houses along the beach. God love them, they achieve success. But they're expanding in Arizona or Texas or Nevada. They're not expanding here. And that's a problem because we need economic growth. I am an economic growth conservative. I came to the Republican Party. I grew up a Democrat. My mom was a lifelong Democrat. I idolized John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy talked about a rising tide lifting all boats, talked about what you can do for your country, not what your country can do for you, right? Isn't that from his famous inaugural speech, right? What have we morphed into? We've morphed into a country whose government wants to be all things to all people and take care of us from beginning of life to the end of our life. That's not free markets. That's not capitalism. Jack Kemp brought me to the Republican Party because he talked about opportunity for all. I mean, I'm a kid born on the south side of Chicago, a working mom, a single mom, 4 kids. I worked my way through college. By the way, I graduated college in 2.5 years. You know why? I paid for it, that's why. My kids, by the way, 5 years they took because I was paying for it. But I've been in business for 40 years because I had the opportunity of a growing economy and the opportunity society, and that's what Jack Kemp talked about. You know, the economy is not a zero-sum game. Just because somebody got rich doesn't mean someone else got poor. The rising tide provides opportunity for people, and I want to have a California that has that kind of opportunity. But I have to tell you, it's almost non-existent. The Democrat politicians who are running for governor, they're all going to talk about inequality. They're going to talk about this widening gap between rich and poor. Well, I got to tell you, under the 8 years of Jerry Brown here, that gap has gotten a lot wider. And why? Why has that happened? I'll tell you why. I think I know one reason, and that is it's almost impossible to start a small business these days. I've given speeches to over 100 Rotary clubs and chambers of commerce and groups like this one over the past 2 years. And every single business person I talk to, first of all, comes up and tells me I would have moved out of California if I could. I can't stand doing business here. I would leave if I could pick up my business and take it somewhere. And then they tell me, I can't imagine how people start their own business in California these days, how they get started. The regulations, the trial lawyers, the crushing taxes and fees. Well, I got to tell you, I'm done with that. I decided to run for governor because I'm sick of corrupt leadership. I want a positive environment to do business. I want growth. I want opportunity, not only for my kids, but all of your kids. I want to make sure that this is a state that has a functioning, sustainable economy. I don't need to tell you, we're looking at an unfunded pension debt that's well over $1 trillion. I'm on the board of the Hoover Institution. We have made promises to state workers that are just untenable. They're just unsustainable. I can't tell you how many police officers I met who are retired at age 53. I'm 62. I'm still running 5 businesses. I'm not going to retire, but I've met police officers that are retired at 53 years old, and I ask them, why are you retired? And they tell me, well, I stopped accruing my pension. I got 30 years in, and 30 years at 3% a year means you get 90% of your salary for the rest of your life, and I'm retired. Well, that's wonderful. I mean, we love our police officers, right? Except when they stop us for a ticket. And we love our firefighters, and we love all the people that work in government, right? But can we afford to have people retiring at age 53 on 90% of their salary? I don't think so. I think that's unsustainable. That's going to mean high costs for everybody else. And the housing situation is the biggest crisis we face. I'm in the housing business. I bought my first apartment building when I was 28 years old. Memo to young people. Start young and never sell. I've been buying apartment buildings and I've never sold one. And I keep improving them and keep refinancing them and keep providing great quality places for people to live, affordable places to live. I'm building apartments for $80,000 a unit in Indiana. That's where most of my apartments are. $80,000 a door. You know what it is here? Is $150,000 in fees before you even turn a spade of dirt. It's $500,000 in San Diego, $700,000 in the Bay Area, $300,000 in Fresno. And why? Because we have a lot of laws and a lot of regulations that the bureaucrats love. Who loves regulation? Politicians and bureaucrats. And you know why? Because it keeps them in business, doesn't it? It keeps them occupied. It keeps them earning a living. But you know what? It impedes our progress. It takes 4 to 8 years to get a housing project approved in the state. And even then, you have to run the gauntlet of trial lawyers and environmental lawsuits and extortion suits by unions and other groups. I don't blame them. They're looking for an advantage, right? But should we have a law that openly gives them the opportunity to hold up a project in order to get a better deal for themselves? It doesn't have a level playing field. See, I love the fact that I was able to build a business in this country, right? I built a business because there was a level playing field. There wasn't somebody putting a thumb on the scale to keep me out of business, was there? That was the opportunity that I was able to get. Well, we've got to get this state turned around. In this campaign, I am going to draw a bright red line between the corruption of the special interest in Sacramento and the horrendous cost of living and the inability of people to advance their lives in this state. And let me tell you, there's a lot of people who agree that this state is almost unaffordable and almost totally devoid of opportunity for working people. And I believe they're going to come out and support this campaign. I believe they want a better, more efficient government. I'm not against government. I just want to end the waste and corruption. You may have heard that I'm the leader of the effort to repeal the gas tax. You know this gas tax that was passed last April, right? Now, is that because I don't want infrastructure? Is that because I don't want the roads fixed? No, I want the roads fixed. We have a $180 billion backlog of construction that needs to get going in the state. But I look at what's going on, and I say you can't keep funneling money to an enterprise that's wasting it. Caltrans was voted the most corrupt and bloated agency in the entire country. Caltrans, a detailed study was done. Caltrans spends $4.50 for every dollar Texas spends on a mile of road. Let that sink in for a second. Our wonderful state government is spending 4 times what Texas does to build a mile of road. And the answer to the politicians, of course, is more taxes. It's more money. It's more inability of people to meet their family needs by taking more tax dollars and driving up the cost of gasoline. No, my answer is spend the money wisely. If we even got down to 2 times what Texas spends, we would be able to build twice as much in the way of roads that we do now. And we wouldn't need a gas tax increase to do it. That's called efficiency. That's called productive, efficient, non-wasteful government. Now, I'm sure all of you are thinking, this is all wonderful and rosy, but John, how are you going to get this stuff done? I told the audience yesterday that Arnold Schwarzenegger came into office with a lot of great ideas too, right? Movie star. I'm not a movie star. But he came into office with a lot of publicity. Nobody had more money and star power than Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? And the legislature, the legislature terminated the Terminator. He got almost nothing done. And he went to the other side, basically. He started agreeing with them because he couldn't get anything done otherwise, right? So I'm not only running for governor, I'm also going to run to try to change the legislature. So I'm going to be putting forth a reform idea. It's called the Neighborhood Legislature. You're going to read about it and hear about it in months to come. We're going to talk about it. We've got to get the money out of politics, but we've got to do it in a wise fashion. And I think this is a decent idea. I was in New Hampshire about 10 years ago, and I discovered the New Hampshire system. Anybody here from New Hampshire? Anybody ever here in New Hampshire? Okay. Well, yeah, New Hampshire is a tiny little state, and it's cold. It's really cold. But they've got a state legislature that's 400 people for a state of only 1 million residents. Think about that. 400, almost as big as the U.S. Congress, right? And I looked at this, and each district's only a couple thousand people. And people get elected by going door to door and introducing themselves to their neighbors. They don't need money, right? They don't need to give power to the special interest. They actually get elected by introducing themselves and talking to people about issues and about policy and involving their constituents. And guess what? People in New Hampshire actually like their legislature. I tell people our legislature is rated just below colonoscopies and cockroaches. And why? Because we know they're just professional fundraisers, aren't they? Really and truly? I mean, they're nice people. I believe they go to Sacramento thinking they can change the environment. I really do believe many of them believe that. But they get up there and they decide the only way to get anything done is to go along with the program, right? And raise money and give the power to the funders. Well, I think we need to change that system, and I'm going to be talking about that because I want to get something done. I want to turn this state around. I want to make it so that our communities are safe. Did you know that we have let a lot of people out of prison in the last 4 or 5 years? You know that, right? Because we've reclassified felonies as misdemeanors. Fully 1/3 of the homeless population is estimated to be former prisoners who were let out of jail, okay? And that's, there's pros and cons there, but the reason that happened is because it costs too much to keep people in prison. We're spending $75,000 a year in California to house a prisoner. Did you know that number? It's $16,000 a year in Alabama. How about we ship all the prisoners to Alabama? I'm just kidding. That wouldn't happen. But we've got to do something about that. We've got dentists in the prison system who are making $800,000 a year. These are dentists that work on prisoners who have broken the law, and they're making $800,000 a year. Something is out of whack with this system, and we've got to change it. But I'm here to tell you, it's not going to change on its own. I need each of you to take responsibility. I'm standing up here. I've put my own resources, a lot of my own resources. When I tell audiences I do this, I say I go home and I sleep like a baby. I wake up every 2 hours and cry. But I feel I'm doing something that's important, and it's something that's going to help the community. And I've always wanted to do things to help the community. That's why I'm on the board of the USO. That's why I started a charity that fixes up the homes of elderly and disabled, because I don't want to just go through life making money. I want to go through life doing good. I want to go through life knowing that I left this wonderful country the best that I can make it. Didn't we win the lottery ticket being able to live in this country? I mean, we bought a winning lottery ticket. Go to another country and see the opportunity you have. It's not there. Like Jack Kemp, I celebrate the fact that people from all over the world want to come to America. And why? Because they fled corruption. They came to America because they believed that America wasn't as corrupt as the place they left. It's the reason people are leaving Mexico. 26,000 murders last year in Mexico. I don't think a border wall should be any controversy whatsoever, by the way. You know, the politicians always like to turn it into racism and hate, don't they? Because hate and fear and anger is what moves people to vote, right? But I believe in security. I believe that we need to make sure that our country is secure, and there's a lot of governments around the world that are corrupt, that aren't as diligent as our government. As bad as our government is, it's still a lot better than a lot of other governments around the world. So I celebrate the fact that America is this country of the free, and we have opportunity here. So I'm going to ask you to join me in this effort. Yeah, I know this is a blue state. Everybody tells me all the time I'm climbing Mount Everest, you know, and I'm pushing a rock up a hill. One guy told me I'm trying to boil the ocean. You ever try to do that? But isn't that the history of America? I mean, you know, did people tell Steve Jobs that he was never going to, you know, create an iPhone that people now, there's 50 million that are sold every year? Did people know they needed an iPhone before he invented that, by the way? No, they didn't know that. Because he invented that, because his company invented that, the demand was created for it, right? Well, I believe there's a lot of people that want better government. I believe that people that want integrity in politics. I believe there's people that are sick of the partisanship, the anger, the hate. They want somebody that's going to bring them together. 19 states now have businessmen as governors. 19 states. Arizona, next door, you know, Doug Ducey, Pete Ricketts in Nebraska, Matt Bevin in Kentucky. Larry Hogan in Maryland. Maryland has a Republican registration of 20%. But Larry Hogan is a conservative Republican businessman who got elected governor of Maryland, and he's now the most popular governor in the country because he addresses the quality of life. That's what people want. They want a better quality of life, right? That's what they look to in terms of leadership. That's what I'm going to promise the people of this state. But please, you have to get involved. You have to help. I can't do this on my own. I want to bring together the people of this state who care about what's going on in California and want to make it better. That's what I'm dedicated to doing. I hope I can get your support and your involvement in this campaign. And the polls yesterday showed me at number 2. I believe there's a lot of people in this state that are interested in changing it for the better and are going to join in this campaign. Because we've got to do it. We've got to do it for our children and our future. Let's make California the Golden State once more. How about it? Thank you very much.